third season of the Now Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser podcast. We changed things up a bit with a name change, and the podcast is full of diverse guests who have fascinating stories of how they are leading their own lives, taking risks, serving others, and loving the lives they lead. They will share how they lead their own lit-up lives, how they achieved inner peace and joy, and the work they did to get there, and continue to do to stay there. Join Debbie this season as she digs in, shares how she started and continues to love herself, love those around her, and love the work she feels called to do. This season, you will hear some real and deep areas of Debbie's life as she shares the work she has done and continues to do to lead her own life in the hopes that through her experiences, you might be able to move into a more lit up life yourself. Listen in as she shares experiences, stories, and tools to help you. Now let's get started.
Hello. This is Debbie Heiser with Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser, and I am so excited to be back talking about the guiding principles. We have 7 and 8, 9 and 10, and 11 and 12. So 3 more episodes that will cover these guiding principles. And then I might have to do one last one that kind of puts them all together for those of you maybe that have or have not seen the entire thing. So anyway, with that being said, I want to take a few minutes to go back and remind us of the previous guiding principles just to keep them in our mind. Again, if you want to learn more about them, please go back and listen to previous podcasts. The first is I will be 100% responsible for myself and to others 100% of the time. Number 2, I will have fun. Number 3, I will not ask why. Why is only important for learning concepts. Principle 4, I will stay current with my feelings, mad, sad, glad, and afraid. Principle number 5, I will be direct and confront in a loving and gentle manner. Principle 6, I will tell the indisputable truth, and if I cannot do that, I will be honest. And number 7 that we're going to discuss and jump into today is I will solely do my work and no one else's. And number 8 is I will choose a win-win mentality and I will not support or play the victim game. So what does all this mean? So when it talks about I'll solely do my work and no one else's, this one's a little tougher concept to try to verbalize in the respect that we all have things that we are working on. Sometimes maybe we're not working on anything, or maybe we're hiding, right? And deciding not to do any work because we feel like we're good. And I'm sorry you keep hearing dings. I can't figure out how to turn these notifications off. And so when we think about doing our own work, it's about making sure that we're not stepping into the victim game, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about here in a minute, and becoming that rescuer, jumping in and trying to do for other people or control what someone else is doing. So if you find that you're telling people what they should do, which I do this, so keep in mind when I'm talking about these are things I work on. If you find yourself making excuses for people, one of the things that I found is that back when I was 8, I was sexually molested, and I found myself making excuses for this person. And it took someone brave to say to me, you're making excuses. You were the one that this action was done to. Don't make excuses for that person and do your work. I had to sit back and kind of think about that for a minute and realize we live in a society also that really pushes this idea that, well, one of the universal laws is the law of 100% accountability. And we live in a world, in a society that doesn't promote that very often. It's more about who can I blame? How can I justify this behavior? How can I swoop in and act like it's not my problem or my issue and put it onto someone else, or point out an issue, or that someone might be struggling, and then instead of taking your own action and doing something, asking other people to take on that responsibility. I mean, there's a lot here to unpack. So first of all, figuring out the work you need to do sometimes is a job in and of itself. And then working through that, I find it's really important that when you're working through some things to find a trusted person. So whether that be a counselor, a psychologist, a good friend, a pastor, someone that you trust your heart with, that you can feel like you can verbalize and share with. To do other people's work would be to try to solve problems for them. You know, an example that happens in this group that I'm involved in that helps people understand, and some of you are going to take offense to this when I say this, but it's about empowering people to understand that by doing their own work, by asking for what they need, that's a way for them to empower themselves and to trust their own decision-making skills, to trust themselves. So if someone starts crying, I know out of kindness, I'm handing them a Kleenex, but like in this group, to help us understand, we're asked not to do that. The first time someone tries to hand somebody a Kleenex, if they're starting to tear up, we ask, please don't do that. Because the person that's crying needs to be able to speak up for themselves and say, can I have a Kleenex, please? Like, these are really subtle things that happen in our world that kind of turn us to that point where we think we can't make decisions for ourselves, that we don't trust our own selves. So we either try to get other people to do our work for us and tell us what to do, kind of put up this whatever attitude, but then also making sure we're not rescuing and trying to help. When I say help other people, like as a coach, that's what I do. But what I try to do is ask really good questions and get that person to uncover that teacher within themselves. And if they can't find that teacher within themselves, then I need to ask a better question. That's been the most successful way to do it. It doesn't mean that there aren't days that I don't come right out and say, you should do this. But for the most part, if you can ask other people questions, step back and try not to tell them what to do or give them unsolicited advice. And sometimes when they ask for the advice, instead of giving advice, asking a question, that's a way to do it, where then people take ownership of their own work. And then I'm not stepping into that rescuer mode. So I think I talked too about the fact that it's about building trust. I've always been about trust. And so it's about building that trust that someone else can make their own decision, but also building the trust in yourself that you've got this and that you can figure it out. Now, guiding principle number 8 is I will choose a win-win mentality and I will not support or play the victim game. So let's talk a little bit about what the victim game is. The victim game, if you think about a triangle, there's the victim that, and I'm not talking about trauma. I'm not talking about situations where it's like a physical abuse, where someone's a victim of physical violence. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is whenever I say, oh, I have to do this, I'm acting as if I'm the victim. If I pontificate on how I've been wronged about something with multiple people, I'm not saying don't share with close trusted friends or, a friend to process through something. But if I pontificate with numerous different people about a wrong that I thought has been done to me, that's me playing the victim. So when I think about, oh, I have to go to the grocery store. Well, no, I want to go to the grocery store because I want to eat healthy food, fresh, healthy food. So it's about that mind shift and shifting the have tos to the I want to, because then I'm not the victim anymore. It's empowerment. Do you see that? Like, not being that person that feels like I have to do this or I don't have any choices. That's disempowerment. By realizing that you take 100% accountability for this and not playing the victim and saying, no, I want to do this, I'm choosing to do this, that's empowering. So anyway, enough on that, because I could go off on empowerment for a long time. So that's part of a victim. Now, the rescuer, and ask me how I know this. It's kind of embarrassing to admit it, but I have been a really good rescuer in my past. And a rescuer, it's not just about the Kleenexes, but it's about, I've done this to my son numerous times where it takes away his own trust in his decision-making skills, but where if he comes to me for advice, instead of asking questions to get him to come up with it, I'll just tell him. Another way I've been a rescuer in parents, I used to make all of my leaders read Love and Logic because it talks about helping people make critical decision-making skills. And I remember with Zachary fighting him about wearing a coat. And one of the things that they talk about in this book is that if you say to your child, hey, it's going to be chilly out, you might want to grab a coat, and they choose not to grab a coat, that if you give them your coat, you're rescuing. So then the next time, they're not going to grab their coat again because you come in and save the day. And so it's helping them learn those kind of decisions, those smaller decisions. So when bigger decisions happen, they're in a state where they trust themselves with those bigger decisions. So a rescuer is anytime that I am making excuses for someone, I'm trying to jump in and save them from something. And I'm being over dramatic here, but it's really subtle. And I will tell you, the interesting thing about this victim game is you can go through the victim game within 30 seconds in your own head, within your thought processes even. Now, the persecutor is the one that always wants to be right. They're the ones that they want to be right. That's about all I can say about that. And so it might be that maybe you have a contract with someone and they're not living up to that commitment. It's about checking yourself and saying, what's my intention? Is my intention to say, here's what the contract read, I'm confused. What is it? Or is it, I'm right, this is what it is? See the subtle difference there? So it's about backing up and making sure that the intentionality of what you're doing is clean. And it takes a lot of practice. I'm here to tell you, this victim game takes a lot of practice. And it's interesting because once you start to see this and understand the victim game, and many call it the drama triangle. There's some books out there about it as well, if you want to learn more about it. But when other people are playing the victim game, then they're always trying to pull you into a role. And it's really hard to stay out of that. And when I say really hard, it's a choice, right? But sometimes what I found is my patterns take over and I'll jump back into that victim game versus staying out of the victim game. One of the things that I learned with the victim game too, is that less is more. Like when I go on and on and on about why I can't do something, first of all, nobody really cares. And B, it's just a way that I'm justifying that I'm being a persecutor by saying I can't do this because X, Y, and Z. So therefore that makes me right. Well, it just doesn't work right now, right? Like my schedule, I can't do that right now. I don't have to attach a why to it, but our society, that has become a norm. And so it's really important to just identify those areas that happens. Now, excuse me, that's a couple of examples of how that shows up in the world. The other thing I want to bring out to you is like what this means to have a win-win mentality. So it's about having options. And you know what? When we feel like there are no options, that's when hopelessness occurs. But there are always other options. Now, we may not like those options. I'll admit that, like there's times I don't like the options that are in front of me, but to pick the win-win mentality, it means staying out of the victim game. And it means looking for a win-win for all involved, right? So having a positive attitude about something, but not with positive toxicity. That's important to know. Like sometimes you just don't want a silver lining. You want to be relevant with your feelings. And if you're mad or you're sad, you want to be sad, and it's okay to be sad. We feel, or what I found is that other people I observe and myself have felt uncomfortable at times when people are mad or sad because the rescuer wants to come in and make them feel better. Sometimes people just want to be sad. And I don't mean like for a long period of time, but it's important, at least I found, that if I'm sad about something, that I feel it, that I don't just try to escape it and move away from it. So the win-win is allowing that. It's allowing yourself to stay out of the victim game and be empowered to be your mature adult, and to look at multiple options and try to pick the option that works for you and works for other people. Sometimes the option that works best for you doesn't work for other people, and vice versa. And that's okay. See, this is that part where we're trying to break codependencies, because then I don't take these things personally, right? So that in a nutshell are the next two guiding principles. I will solely do my work and no one else's, and I will choose a win-win mentality, and I will not support or play the victim game. So we will jump into 9 and 10, and then 11 and 12 to round us out towards the first of the year. And I look forward to sharing the remaining 4 with you. If you would like to get a hold of me, chat a little bit more, I would love to talk to you. I'm at www.leadyourlituplife.com. And I'm also out on social media and would love to hear from you. Everybody, make it a great day.